Hi, my name is Lindsay, and I'm 18 years old. I've always got perfect marks and was the best student at my school. But nobody had any idea what kind of secret I had. Do you want to find out? Then subscribe to the channel, and I will tell you everything. I really did only ever get perfect marks. But my main motivation wasn't a bright future, but rather Mr. Primrose, my young and handsome math teacher. He'd got a job at our school a few years before that, and I'd fallen in love with him at first sight. Since then, I'd been doing everything I could to make him like me. I was a good student, always raised my hand first, never skipped classes, and was sure that soon, Mr. Primrose would see me as something more than just a student. However, I couldn't have imagined then what a surprise I was in for. One day, a new girl called Anna was transferred to our school. I liked her straight away, as she turned out to be a straight-A student as well. We hit it off as we had many common interests and things to talk about. In the end, we became good friends and spent all of our free time together, mostly studying. We had an important inter-school math competition coming up. Winning it practically guaranteed you would be accepted into a cool college. So, I absolutely had to nail it. Anna and I were preparing together, so on the day of the competition, I almost did not worry. I wrote my answers, turned them in, and waited for the results. When the time to announce the winner came, I felt completely sure I'd won, but it wasn't my name that the teacher said at all. I couldn't believe my ears, but he said, "First place goes to Anna." I looked at her, astonished. When Mr. Primrose suddenly came up to her and started praising her, I felt my heart break. Unfortunately, the horse did not end there. It suddenly turned out that Anna was better than me at everything. She only ever got top marks and quickly became the teacher's new favorite. Everyone kept praising her, but Mr. Primrose dealt me with the worst blow. He, too, had become one of Anna's admirers, and now he didn't even look at me. I simply couldn't stand it. I stopped talking to Anna and spent all of my free time studying. I didn't sleep at night. I was glued to my textbooks, but I still couldn't score higher than my ex-friend. I didn't know what else to do to beat her, and in the end, I decided it was time for desperate measures. While Anna was distracted, I found a bottle of soda in her bag and unscrewed the lid. The sweet drink spilled all over her notebooks. But Anna still got the high score that day. It turned out that she didn't need the notebooks, as she could tell the answers from memory. The next day, I sneakily put gum in my rival's textbook to glue the pages together. The book was absolutely ruined, but Anna didn't seem upset about it at all. I had to think of something serious to finally get rid of that nasty girl and make Mr. Primrose notice me again. I couldn't sleep a wink at night, tossed and turned, thought a lot, and finally came up with a plan. In the morning, I felt like a secret agent at school. My hands were shaking with excitement, and it took everything I had to wait until the lunch break. After everyone had gone into the cafeteria, I sneaked into Mr. Primrose's classroom. I couldn't even imagine what would happen if I got caught there, but it was too late to change my mind. I had to teach Anna a lesson. After a thorough search, I found the test the whole class would have to solve during the next lesson. Each piece of paper was signed with a student's name, so it wasn't difficult to find the right one. I pulled Anna's out of the pile and carefully used whiteout to cover several tasks so that she wouldn't be able to solve them. After that, hardly daring to believe my luck, I put the paper back and quietly left the office. I felt happy and excited about my victory the rest of the time before the class. It was very unlikely Anna would get a good mark now. However, something went wrong during that class. As usual, I had completed the test very quickly, so I could clearly see my ex-friend suffering, reading the task that could not be solved over and over. However, the longer I looked at her, the worse I felt. I hated that nasty girl with all of my heart, But I was well aware of how much time Anna spent studying and how much effort it took. How sad it must be to get a bad mark after all of that. In the end, I couldn't bear it. While the teacher was distracted by the students in the back row, I quietly whispered to her, "Anna, it seems like whiteout has been dropped on your paper. The task looks incorrect." At first, my ex-friend looked at me blankly, as if she was waiting for some trick. However, I saw her wipe the whiteout away and finally solve the problem. I was upset as I walked home that day. It seemed I wouldn't get Mr. Primrose to look at me again after all. And I couldn't truly set Hannah up either. It was too mean. When I came into my room, I threw myself onto my bed and burst into tears. At that moment, I had no idea that I would very soon have guests. The ring of the doorbell caught me off guard. After all, I didn't have many friends as I was too focused on my studies. Wiping away my tears, I went down the stairs, opened the door, and saw Hannah. She was smiling at me, holding a box of chocolates. "Can we please not fight anymore?" she asked. Of course, I couldn't tell her no. It wasn't Anna's fault that my favorite teacher paid more attention to her than me. After that incident, we became best friends again. We spent a lot of time together, doing homework and working on scientific projects like before. I thought I'd overcome my dislike of her, and everything would be the same again. But one small thing changed everything. One day, I took my friend's notebook to copy her notes, but my attention was suddenly drawn by a drawing on the cover. In the very corner, I saw the word Primrose circled with a heart. What did that mean? Beside myself with anger, I immediately asked my friend about it. At first, Anna denied it and didn't want to talk. But then, she admitted that she too had long been in love with our math teacher. And there I was, thinking that we could still be friends. That was it! I'd had enough! I made up my mind not even to talk to Anna anymore. I stopped answering her calls and stubbornly ignored her in the school hallways. And yet, she found a way to get my attention. One day, Anna met me at the school entrance in tears. She looked so miserable that I couldn't just leave and had to hear her out. It turned out that she had been very upset about our fight, so she had gone straight to Mr. Primrose to sort everything out once and for all. I told him about my feelings, but he just shook his head and said we couldn't be together, sobbed Anna. And then she said something I'd never imagined, even in my wildest dreams. But only because he loves someone else. It's you, Lindsay. He loves you. At that moment, it felt like someone had turned my whole world upside down. Was it really happening to me? Had I truly worried so much over nothing? Seeing the smile on my face, Anna smiled as well. She said she had already arranged everything. Mr. Primrose was waiting for me and had something very important to say. Finally, she hugged me and whispered, "Congratulations, Lindsay. I wish you two happiness. Go get him." I walked on numb legs straight to my math class. I saw Mr. Primrose from a distance, and my heart was pounding with joy. I quickened my steps, almost running toward him, when suddenly, oh no, anything but that. At the most crucial moment, my legs failed me. I tripped and fell right on top of the teacher, and he couldn't keep his balance, so we fell onto the floor together. I felt my cheeks burn with embarrassment. It was the best moment of my life. Panting with excitement, I started to say the first thing that came to mind. "Oh, I'm sorry. Are you hurt? I'm so glad that you agreed to meet me. I love you, and you love me." Except the teacher didn't smile back. He frowned, started to push me away, and said, "Lindsay, are you crazy? What love?" At that moment, the door of one of the classes opened right behind us. Anna walked out, and almost all of our classmates after her. They started laughing, joking, and pointing at us. The best day of my life had turned into a nightmare. I jumped to my feet and ran to the bathroom to hide in a stall and cry. Anna followed me. She came close to the door and whispered angrily, "Do you understand that I'm better than you now? Don't you dare compete with me again. That's when I realized she'd known that it had been me behind all those mean tricks. Everything that followed had been her devious plan to humiliate me and put me in my place. I'd never imagined my friend could be so cunning. But, as I would very soon find out, betrayal was not the worst thing she could do. The next day, I pulled myself together and went to school, only to immediately regret it. Everyone around me was whispering and looking at me sideways. Apparently, the whole school now knew about what had happened. My heart sank at the thought of meeting Mr. Primrose in class. However, when I walked into the classroom, he wasn't there. Instead, a strange woman was sitting at the teacher's desk. I immediately asked where Mr. Primrose was. She replied that he had been dismissed from the school with a scandal that morning. Oh, what had we done? I had no idea that my stupid rivalry with Anna would lead to such consequences. We'd ruined our teacher's career for something that hadn't been his fault at all. I have to do something about it. I can't let Mr. Primrose get into trouble because of me. But I have absolutely no idea where to start. Maybe you could tell me. Please write in the comments down below. What should I do? After all, this is very important to me.